All right, if there are no other comments, questions, then maybe we can move on to the next verse, which is going to be a new chapter. Should we move on?
Yes.
Okay, good. So that brings us to the last chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And actually, in this Corona crisis, we have moved very fast on Bhagavad Gita. I think I started coming to this temple in 2009, and since then we have been discussing Bhagavad Gita, and we have not yet finished it. We are in 2020, so due to Corona, we are now at least we are moving so fast that we are having these classes every day. So at least I am now hopeful that within my lifetime we'll be able to complete Bhagavad Gita in this in our temple.
As long as COVID-19 sticks around long enough.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So here is a little introduction to the 18th chapter before we actually start discussing. So the name of the chapter is Moksha Sannyas Yoga. Now this is the perfection of renunciation. Now this, as we know, 18th chapter is the longest chapter of Bhagavad Gita. There are 78 verses in the 18th chapter. The second longest chapter is the second chapter, which has 72 verses. Now, in one sense, we know that the name of the second chapter is Contents of the Gita Summarized. And actually, Krishna do in fact summarize the whole Gita in the second chapter. But even in the 18th chapter, we'll see that Krishna is giving a full summary of what has been discussed in the throughout the Bhagavad Gita. So also the first verse of the 18th chapter, Arjuna is going to ask his last question to Krishna. So actually, after the 10th chapter, the Krishna's class is over already. Krishna's Bhagavad Gita class is over, and it is going more in terms of question answer session, where Arjuna is asking questions for further clarification and Krishna is answering his questions. So Arjuna is going to ask his last question in the first verse of the 18th chapter, and Krishna is going to give a fantastic answer to that question. So here is a overview of the 18th chapter. The first 12 verses, Krishna talks about Karma Yoga. He has already discussed Karma Yoga in the 3rd and the 5th chapter, but he is going to actually, and the 4th chapter also actually, 3 to 5. So he is going to summarize about the Karma Yoga in the first 12 verses. Then in the next 4 verses, 13 through 17, he's going to talk about what is the knowledge that a Karma Yogi has. What is the Gyan that a Karma Yogi has with which he operates in the material world. Then again, the verses 18 to 40 are a continuation of that theme, where Krishna is going to talk more in terms of how the Karma Yogi understands that how everything is under the control of the 3 modes. So again, that theme of how different things are in different modes, that theme will again come from verses 18 to 40. 41 to 48 is basically Bhagavad Arpit Karma Yoga, Karma Yoga offered to Krishna, and here we have that famous verse where Krishna, which is often mistranslated as work is worship. Before I read Bhagavad Gita, I had heard about Bhagavad Gita and what Bhagavad Gita says from different random people, and the understanding that I had was work is worship. So I used to think that whatever I'm doing, it's worship only. So why do I have to worry about, bother about going to temple and all that stuff? My work only is worship. But actually that is not what the verse says. It says Swa Karmana Tam Abhyarcha. Through your work, worship me. That is what Krishna says. So that also is going to come in this section of Bhagavad Arpit Karma Yoga, which is verses 41 to 48. 49 to 55, Krishna talks about Jnana Yoga. So now, basically, in this chapter, full yoga ladder will be described. So Karma Yoga, when it is described, then it basically talks about how Karma Yoga moves towards bhakti. Some bhakti is required. Then Krishna also talks about Jnana Yoga, but basically how that also progresses towards bhakti. And then within this section, 49 to 55, verses 54 and 55 are very critical. That those verses, Brahma Bhrut Prasanna Atmana Soshyati Na Kankshati, and then the 55th verse is Bhaktya Mam Abhijanati. That is also a very important verse. Then verses 56 to 78 are directly talking about Bhakti Yoga. Now there are certain subsections within that, and we'll discuss that when we come there. So basically, Krishna stops speaking in verse 72, and 73 is basically what Arjuna speaks, verse 73, and 74 to 78 is basically Sanjay concludes the discussion of Bhagavad Gita. And that basically what if we will see that how it talks about Bhakti Yoga only. So 56 to 78 directly talks about Bhakti Yoga. And the verse 56 is very critical in a sense that we just read also where Prabhupada says that, you know, there is a gradual process by which you can be elevated. In the purport to 17.28 we were reading, right? And Prabhupada also says that, you know, you can also directly perform Bhakti Yoga. So this 56 directly speaks about how everything can be done, everything can be offered to Krishna. And it also talks about that Bhakti Yoga is the highest, but you know, the grace of Bhakti actually extends even downwards. You know, even the lowest can perform Bhakti Yoga. So it is so potent. So there are other verses also in this connection in the 9th chapter. You know, api chet suduracharo bhajte mam ananya bhag. That verse is there, and then the very next verse, you know, mam hi partha vyapashitya itisyu papayonya. So basically, Bhakti Yoga is the highest, but it is so glorious that it can elevate the lowest level of people also. So with that introduction to the 18th chapter, let us discuss the first verse of the. I'm going to share my screen. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, so let's recite this verse. It's an excellent verse. Arjuna Uvacha.
Arjuna Vacha.
Sannyasayasya mahabaho.
Sannyasya mahabhavo.
Tattvam ichhami veditum.
Tattam ichhami veditum.
Yagyasya yascha rishikesha.
Yagasya cha rishikesha.
Prithakeshu nishusudana.
Prithakeshu nishusudana.
Arjuna Uvacha.
Arjuna Vacha.
Sannyasayasya mahabaho.
Sannyasya
mahabaho.
Tattvam ichhami veditum.
Tattam ichhami veditum.
Yagasya cha rishikesha.
Yagasya cha rishikesha.
Prithakeshu nishusudana.
Prithakeshu nishusudana.
Arjuna Uvacha.
Arjuna Vacha.
Sannyasayasya mahabaho.
Sannyasayasya mahabaho.
Tattvam ichhami veditum.
Tattam ichhami veditum.
Yagyasya cha rishikesha.
Yagasya cha rishikesha.
Prithakkeshi nishudana.
Prithakkeshi nishudana.
Anyone else would like to recite?
Arjuna Uvacha.
Arjuna Vacha.
Sannyasya mahabaho.
Sannyasayasya mahabaho.
Tattvam ichhami veditum.
Tattam ichhami veditum.
Yagasya cha rishikesha.
Yagasya cha rishikesha.
Prithakkeshi nishudana.
Prithakkeshi nishudana.
Arjuna Vacha.
Arjuna Vacha.
Sannyasya mahabaho.
Sannyasya mahabaho.
Tattvam ichhami veditum.
Tattam ichhami veditum.
Yagyasya cha rishikesha.
Yagasya cha rishikesha.
Prithakkeshi nishudana.
Prithakkeshi nishudana.
Arjuna Vacha.
Arjuna Vacha.
Sannyasa Mahabaho.
Sannyasya
mahabaho.
Tvam Ichhami Veditum.
Tattvam ichhami veditum.
Yagasya cha Hrishikesha.
Yagasya cha rishikesha.
पृथक् केशिनिषूदनः
पृथक्
केशिनिषूदन
सन्न्यासश्च महाबाहो
सन्न्यासस्य महाबाहो
तत्त्वमिच्छामि वेदितुम्
तत्त्वमिच्छामि वेदितुम्
त्यागस्य च ऋषिकेश
त्यागस्य च
ऋषिकेश
पृथक्केशिनिषूदन
पृथक् केशिनिषूदन.
Sorry, I didn't say Arjuna Vacha.
Okay, let's recite the synonyms. Arjuna Vacha.
Arjuna
Arjuna
Vacha.
Vacha.
Arjuna said.
Arjuna
said.
Said.
Sannyasya
Sannyasasya
of renunciation.
of
renunciation.
Mahabaho,
Mahabaho,
O mighty armed one.
Almighty
mighty armed one.
Tatvam,
Tattvam,
the truth.
the
the
truth.
truth.
The truth.
Ichhami,
Ichhami,
I wish.
I wish.
Wish.
Veditum,
Veditum,
to understand.
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 Tyagasya,
Tyagasya,
of renunciation.
of renunciation.
Cha,
Cha,
also.
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 Rishikesha,
Rishikesha,
O master of the senses.
O master of the senses.
Prithak,
Pithak,
differently.
differently.
Keshi Nishudana,
Keshi Nishudana,
O killer of the Keshi demon.
O killer of the Keshi demons.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Arjuna said, O mighty armed one, I wish to understand the purpose of renunciation, Tyaga, and of the renounced order of life, Sannyasa. O killer of the Keshi demon, master of the senses. Purport. Actually, the Bhagavad Gita is finished in 17 chapters. The 18th chapter is a supplementary summarization of the topics discussed before. In every chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna stresses that devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of life. This same point is summarized in the 18th chapter as the most confidential path of knowledge. In the first 6 chapters, stress was given to devotional service, yoginam api sarvesham. Of all yogis or transcendentalists, one who always thinks of me within himself is best. In the next 6 chapters, pure devotional service and its nature and activity were discussed. In the third 6 chapters, knowledge, renunciation, the activities of material nature and transcendental nature, and devotional service were described. It was concluded that all acts should be performed in conjunction with the Supreme Lord, represented by the words Om Tat Sat, which indicate Vishnu, the Supreme Person. The third part of Bhagavad Gita has shown that devotional service and nothing else is the ultimate purpose of life. This has been established by citing past acharyas and the Brahma Sutra, the Vedanta Sutra. Certain impersonalists consider themselves to have a monopoly on the knowledge of Vedanta Sutra. But actually the Vedanta Sutra is meant for understanding devotional service. For the Lord himself is the composer of the Vedanta Sutra and he is its knower. That is described in the 15th chapter. In every scripture, every Veda, devotional service is the objective. That is explained in Bhagavad Gita. As in the 2nd chapter, a synopsis of the whole subject matter was described. In the 18th chapter, also the summary of all instruction is given. The purpose of life is indicated to be renunciation and attainment of the transcendental position above the 3 modes of nature. Arjuna wants to clarify the 2 distinct subject matters of Bhagavad Gita, namely renunciation, Tyaga, and the renounced order of life, Sannyasa. Thus, he is asking the meaning of these 2 words. 2 words used in this verse to address the Supreme Lord, Rishikesha and Keshi Nishudana, are significant. Rishikesha is Krishna, the master of all senses, who can always help us attain mental serenity. Arjun requests him to summarize everything in such a way that he can remain equipoised. Yet he has some doubts, and doubts are always compared to demons. He therefore addresses Krishna as Keshi Nishudana. Keshi was a most formidable demon who was killed by the Lord. Now Arjuna is expecting Krishna to kill the demon of doubt. So, Prabhupada, gives a wonderful purport. He basically talks about the use of the two. Actually, this is a very significant verse in one sense. I believe this is the only verse where three different referents are used to address Krishna. So the three different referents are, the first he says Sannyasya Mahabaho Tattvam Ichchami Veditum. So he says Mahabaho. Mahabaho is the first referent that is used to refer to Krishna. Then Tyagasya Cha Rishikesha. Rishikesha is the second referent. And then Prathak Keshi Nishudana. Keshi Nishudana is the third referent to refer to Krishna. In just one verse, there are other verses where Arjuna uses two referents in just one single verse to refer to Krishna. But in this, I believe this is the only verse. I may be wrong on that, but this is the only verse where Arjuna uses three different referents. Now let's try to understand. Prabhupada gives the meaning of the two referents, Rishikesha and Nishudana. So Mahabaho means one like mighty armed one, one who has very strong arm. Basically, it talks about Mahabaho means a person who is very, very powerful. Now Mahabaho, incidentally, it is used by Arjuna to refer to Krishna, and actually Mahabaho is also used by Krishna to refer to Arjuna. So there are multiple verses, I believe, where Krishna uses Mahabaho to refer to Arjuna. I think three prominent verses that I could remember is 3.43, where Krishna says Jahi Shatrum Mahabaho. That is 3.43, 6.35 again, that is the second verse where Krishna says Asamshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam. And then we have the verse, very important verse, which is the 10.1, Bhuya Eva Mahabaho Shinume Paramam Vachaha. So Mahabaho is a referent that is used to describe a person who is very strong. Generally Kshatriyas are considered to be Mahabaho, strong persons, very mighty armed one. Now, Rishikesha, as Srila Prabhupada also explains, so the other acharyas also explain, now every referent that is used in every verse, it has a specific meaning. Now, why would Arjuna call Krishna sometimes as Rishikesha, sometimes as Madhava, sometimes as Janardana? So every name with which Arjuna is referring to Krishna, it has a specific meaning in that context. So acharyas explain that Rishikesha means one who is the master of the senses. So when Arjuna uses this word Rishikesha to refer to Krishna, it basically means that, oh Krishna, you are the control of the senses, and it is by your will that this doubt has come into my mind, so, please direct my senses, please direct my senses, because this doubt has come. And Keshi Nishudana, you are the killer of the demons. Keshi is the horse demon, if you remember. Krishna actually kills that horse demon by putting his mouth inside the, basically putting his hand inside the mouth of Keshi. Keshi is the horse demon. So generally, we know that horses are controlled by, tying the rope on their mouth. So the horses are controlled by mouth. So Krishna knows how to actually tame the horses. So he puts his hand inside the mouth of this horse demon and kills it. So it was a very strong demon, and that is why Arjuna is saying that just as you have killed the Keshi Nishudana, please kill this doubt that has arisen in my mind. And then Mahabaho, and you can surely kill it because you are Mahabaho, you are a very strong person. So that is the meaning that is being used here for these three different names that Arjuna uses for referring to Krishna. Now, actually, if you see Arjuna is trying to, he is asking a technical question. We don't have much time, but he's asking more like a technical question. So there is a word sannyas and tyaga. So he's asking the difference between the two. It's more like it's not that Arjuna doesn't understand. Basically, he is trying to clarify it more. What exactly is tyaga, what is sannyasa, and what is the result of tyaga and sannyas. So this tyaga has come earlier, sannyas has also come earlier. Sannyas may actually refer to two different things. One is, it can refer to the social order, sannyas ashram, as we say, sannyasis, so that is like a social order. Sannyas may also refer to a disposition of a person. I may actually be doing everything, but inside I have a disposition of a sannyasi. I'm actually not getting attached to anything. So that is one meaning of sannyas. But here, as Prabhupada also indicates in the purport, refers to the social order of sannyas. Tyaga actually we can see from the way it is used in the Bhagavad Gita. Especially, I remember in the 12th chapter, there is a verse where Krishna says, "Sarva karma phala tyaga." Just give up the fruits of all the work. So tyaga is referred. So sannyas is referred to as giving up the activity itself. That is sannyas. And tyaga is that activity is done, but we give up the fruits of the work. So if we see throughout the Bhagavad Gita, the message that Krishna is giving to Arjuna. So Arjuna's question initially, one of the arguments that he had put in the first chapter for not fighting the war is that, it is sinful for me to kill so many people. And if I kill these people, I will attain sin. Therefore, I will not fight the war. So throughout the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna had been speaking that it is not the action itself, that causes either sin or bondage. It is the motivation by which the action has been performed that actually causes bondage, that actually causes sin. So he says that the message of the Bhagavad Gita is basically renounced action, detached action. You do your action, but don't be attached to the fruits of your action. So detached action or renounced action, that is what is the message of the Bhagavad Gita. To understand it better, say for example, there is a doctor, and then there is a very serious patient who is like a heart patient, and he comes and the doctor does some initial checkup, and he says this person, he has a severe problem in his heart and I have to operate, otherwise he'll die. But he says, I'm afraid if he dies, then I will get sinful result. Therefore I will not operate, and I will I'll just not do anything. So I just give it, let him be, either he dies or whatever, at least I will not get the sinful result. So if the doctor thinks like that, then it is like a irresponsibility on the side of the doctor. Even from a legal perspective, the doctor will be considered culpable. So nowadays we have this insurance. I work for insurance companies, so we have a professional liability insurance. So even if you are irresponsible in your professional duty, don't worry, the insurance company is going to pay for you. So that is a more like the tone of the professional liability insurance. But so if the doctor gives up his duty of performing the operation just because he thinks that if the patient dies, I will attain sin, that is very irresponsible. So there is a difference between irresponsibility and detachment. Irresponsibility is before the action is performed, and detachment is after the action is performed. So detachment basically means that, okay, we do the action with a motivation that it is either my duty, or even if we have some other motivation, then we are at least not attached to the results. And sannyasa refers to actually giving up the work itself. For sannyas, there is a question that Arjuna also asked in the 5th chapter. 3rd chapter he asked, and Krishna clarifies. And the 5th chapter, again, Arjuna asked the same question. And then Krishna basically says that, Arjuna, you are not qualified to take sannyas, because for sannyasa, we should be purified. We should not have any material desires at all in the heart. If there are any material desires, then we cannot be fixed in sannyas. We are going to fall down. So there is a basic minimum qualification for sannyas. So therefore, Krishna tells Arjuna that first do your duty, and by doing your duty, you become purified. And from there, Krishna talks about, in the 6th chapter, he talks about renouncing the world and going into the forest and, performing the Ashtanga yoga. And then basically we understand that Arjuna says that this is not possible for me. It's very difficult. I can control the wind, but I cannot control my mind. And from there, Krishna talks about Bhakti yoga. So the focus on Bhakti comes there in the, from the 7th chapter onwards. So we just have 2 more minutes left. I'll stop here and see if there are any comments, questions, corrections. Anyone would like to add anything?
So you're saying the detachment for the doctor is no matter how the surgery comes out, he should not be attached to it, but he should do it with a sense of responsibility that I'm doing my best.
Exactly. If he doesn't do his duty itself, then that will be culpable even by law. He will be, tried, and he will be
Right.
even be arrested. So it's a very similar situation to what Arjuna was saying. Arjuna was saying that I'll not fight the war because I'm going to get sinful reaction. So then Krishna explains to Arjuna that it is not the action itself, but the motivation of the action that causes bondage or sin.
But what is the scope of renunciation? All the senses, or like renunciate from what?
You're asking more in terms of tyaga or sannyas, Prabhu, because renunciation is used interchangeably for both tyaga and sannyas.
No, in this verse. Right?
Yeah.
So,
So in
Tyagasya cha rishi, right? So
Yeah, right. Tyagasya cha rishi. Yeah,
so there are both words are there, right? Sannyasasya, Tyagasya.
correct.
So there is a sannyas part is also there and tyag part. So sannyasa is the renunciation, and tyag is also the renunciation of just like looking for results, right?
Yeah,
Just-
sannyas is a tyaga of action itself, giving up the action itself. So Krishna is going to clarify later in the same chapter that tyaga refers to giving up kamya karma. Kamya karma, so there are two different karmas, kamya karma and nitya karma. Nitya karma is basically for Brahmins, like for example, we do our Gayatri, we have some prescribed duties for the Brahmana. So the duty part is not to be given, but anything that is not the duty can be given up. Exactly, that is what Krishna is going to tell to Arjuna later. And tyaga refers to giving up the attachment to the results of our action. So we don't give up the action itself, but we give up we are not attached. So we basically give up the attachment to the results of our action.
Okay.
Prabhuji, how can we practice renunciation in our day-to-day life? Tyaga.
By offering everything to Krishna, by doing everything for Krishna. It is at times, so Krishna is going to say that later, sarva karmana swakarmana tam abhyarcha siddhim vinnati manava. Basically he will say that work in such a way that your work becomes like a worship of me. So basically offering your work itself to Krishna, not just the action, so not just the results of your work, but offering the work itself to Krishna. So work in a way that your work is also dedicated to me. So that is how we have to practice that. Obviously it's not very easy, but the problem comes with devotees. Devotees becomes expert in offering everything to Krishna, but the main problem comes for devotees is basically the attachment to the family members, attachment to our spouses, our parents, our children. That is I have heard from devotees that is the main cause of concern for the devotees, where they're not able to give up that attachment. So for that, it is recommended that we actually spiritualize our relationship. What does it mean? Basically Krishna says mamayvamshu jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. Every living entity is my part and parcel. So we see our family members not exactly as ours. Obviously we have a relationship with them, but we see them in relationship with Krishna, that Krishna has actually entrusted this person under my care, and I should actually serve them in a way that it pleases Krishna. So if we put Krishna in center, if we are aware of our own relationship with Krishna and their relationship with Krishna, and then deal with them in a way that I am dealing with them to please Krishna, then we can spiritualize our relationships. It's not very easy, it's difficult, but we have to practice it.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay.
I mean, I think Vallabhi Gopi was reading the Narada Sutras or something one morning, and in that it said that even families, we are just kind of born by accident with each other, it said in that. And even somewhere, isn't it like there is an analogy where like families and friends are like sticks coming together in water or something like that.
Hiranyakashipu speaks that, Mataji.
Huh?
Hiranyakashipu speaks that to the widow of when Hiranyaksha died. So he says that. Yeah, so it looks like he's very Krishna conscious actually when he speaks that.
Right. That's surprising, right?
Yeah, but Prabhupada says that he's not practicing, so is just speaking, so he's not a devotee, he's definitely a
Mhm.
demon.
Right. But so if you keep that in mind, you know, we shouldn't be so attached.
There is also a verse that comes in Srimad Bhagavatam where it says very graphically, it says that the family members are like robbers. they are to rob us of our.
I have to agree with that when my children ask me for money.
So you can, if that helps you to get detached, so be it. Yen ken prakare, whatever way it helps you. Okay, so I think we are past the time, so we can stop here. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Krishna.
Very well.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhyaभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Oh, very nice class. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Krishna.